Welcome back. All right, so as promised, after a perfect road trip by the New York Rangers, I want to discuss the New York Rangers today. They are 7-2 to start the season. Really, really strong start by this team. They are first in the Metro. I don't think they were first in the Metro at all last season. I seem to remember New Jersey and Carolina being ahead of them most, if not all the way. But for the Rangers, Panarin's been a big part of it. 5 goals, 10 assists for him in 9 games. So 15 points in 9 games, nothing to sneeze at early in the season. Adam Fox, 3 goals, 8 assists for 11 points in 9 games. I guess he heard Carlson got 100 points, and he's like, I guess I can give it a shot. Zibanejad, 2 goals, 7 assists, 9 points. He's been very good. The puck has started going in the net for Zibanejad. That's bad news for the rest of the league. Chris Kreider, who already has 4 power play goals. He has 6 goals altogether to go with 2 assists for 8 points in 9 games. And Keandre Miller has hit a next gear offensively, a goal and 6 assists. He's also played all 9 games, which is part of what's helped the Rangers thus far, too. No major injuries to this stage, knock on wood, right? In net, things have been good. Shesterkin's numbers, 5-2 with a 905 save percentage. His save percentage has been coming up after a bit of a shaky start there. Quick, 2-0 to start the season, 982 save percentage, and a shutout right here. So Jonathan Quick having a nice bounce back season thus far. It is very early. It's a small sample size. But after the year that Quick had last year, it's honestly kind of a surprise he's bounced back. Now, what's interesting is over the offseason, the Rangers hired Peter Laviolette. And there was a lot of, well, this is another recycled coach and why it didn't work in his last location. Why is it going to work here? The reality is some coaches just work better with one roster than they do with another. Sometimes there are very clear reasons for that. I think with Tortorella, there's very clear reasons why it does or doesn't work. With other coaches, it's crapshoot. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Bruce Boudreau is the one that stands out to me as more, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But this 5-game road trip was really impressive. So let's start off with where it started, which was against Seattle. They win 4-1. They did allow the first goal. It was then tied 1-1 after one. And Jonathan Quick saved 18 out of 19. So shot suppression was big in that one too. And that is something that we will talk about with the Rangers. That can make a big difference in your game. So then they go to Calgary. They won that one 3-1. They allowed the first goal in that one as well. They trailed 1-0 after the first. They do end up winning it 3-1, and Igor Shesterkin saves 25 out of 26. Many of those spectacular saves. Then they go to Edmonton. Jonathan Quick's the goaltender again. Nice rotation in the net. And Quick saves all 29 shots in the shutout victory over the Edmonton Oilers. The Rangers scored all 3 goals in the second period in this one, and then they just shut it down in the third. So really good game by Jonathan Quick there. And again, so that's 2 in a row where their goaltending really helps them out. Would they have won if they had middle-of-the-road goaltending? Maybe not, right? Then they go to Vancouver. An overtime win, 4-3. Canuck fans may still be salty about it, but it happens. It's a regular season game. You've got to pace out your rage during the regular season. If you use it all up in October and you have none left in April, you're just a shell of a hockey fan. So in this case, they led 1-0 after the first. It was tied 1-1 after the second. It was a very competitive, close game. Shesterkin saves 30 out of 33 in that overtime win. Then last night against the Winnipeg Jets, they win in overtime again, this time by a score of 3-2. It was tied 1-1 after the first. The score stayed the same after the second as well. So again, tight, low-scoring games all the way down the board here, and Shesterkin saves 27 out of 29. First time he had played back-to-back games on the road trip. But it makes sense because they don't play again until Thursday. So I would think over the next 5 games, you might see Jonathan Quick play maybe once, but I don't know. We'll see. Because their schedule is not that condensed over the next 5 games. They have some days off. And really that's the concern with goaltenders, right? You want to make sure that you're not playing them in back-to-backs. You're not tiring them out again in October. You want to make sure they've got gas left in the tank later on in the season. So when we look at their upcoming schedule, I'll start with this. Sure, on Thursday, they're at home against Carolina. Carolina's got things going. Carolina's 6-4. They were 3-4. Carolina, unlike the Rangers, Carolina had a really rough time with their trip out west. The Rangers really enjoyed their time out west. They don't know what other teams are complaining about. But the Canes and the Rangers, that should have a playoff feel to it. It really, really should. These teams are no stranger to one another. Then they go to Minnesota on Saturday, on November the 4th. The Minnesota Wild are 3-4-2 to start the season, and they'll see them twice in 5 days. They come home, they play against the Wings before they see Minnesota again. The Wings, of course, 6-3-1 to start the season. That game is on Tuesday. So again, you've got Thursday, then you've got Friday off, you've got a Saturday game, Sunday, Monday off, then you have a Tuesday game, you got Wednesday off, and on Thursday, you are hosting the Minnesota Wild, who once again are 3-4-2 to start the season. The Wild are very inconsistent, so we'll see which Minnesota Wild team shows up for those games. And then again at home against Columbus on Sunday, November the 12th. So Columbus is 3-4-2 to start the season as well. Not a great start for the two teams born in 2000. But yeah, for the Minnesota Wild, Columbus Blue Jackets, Detroit, Carolina, like this is not a really, really difficult schedule, especially when you take into account that there are days off in between. There are no back-to-backs over the next 5 games. So after a 5-game road trip, the schedule is actually kind of nice. They got 4 of the next 5 at home. And so it'll be interesting to see if they can win both against Minnesota, one of the 2 against Detroit and Carolina, and beat Columbus. Like, that's reasonable to expect, right? So, yeah, the good times should continue to roll for the New York Rangers. But that's why they play the games. You never know. So when we look at the numbers, 3.11 goals scored per game, that's 17th. So they're right around middle of the league there. Their goals against, 2. And even 2 per game, that is second overall because Boston's numbers are ridiculous. That's why. Their 34.4% on the power play is second. And there's a lot of discussion about whether or not they're just power play merchants and this is just, it's just all power play. Well, yeah, the Oilers did that all year last year. The Oilers had themselves quite the season, and the power play was a huge part of the reason why. So you can say, well, it's just the power play, but when you're clicking at 34.4%, that's quite the power play. That's pretty lethal. That's better than 1 in 3. Teams will play differently against you when your power play is that good. They don't want to take a penalty. Their penalty kill, 83.9%, surprisingly is 11th. The numbers in the power play this year, there are a few teams with ridiculous numbers. It doesn't feel like it's as ridiculous as last year. The scoring doesn't feel like it's as high as last year either. And I'm saying doesn't feel like, because I haven't looked at all the numbers, but it feels like scoring's a little bit down to start the season compared to last year. So 26.2 shots against per game is second in the NHL as well. So that's the key thing too. You've got Quick, you've got Shesterkin. You want to have Quick in the net. Occasionally, you want to make sure Shesterkin doesn't get overworked. You keep the shots against down, you're helping both goaltenders. And they've done that. You look at these games, 19, 26, 29, 33, 29. Over the road trip, it averages out to a little bit higher than the 26.2, I do believe. But again, that's 5 games on the road. Now they're coming back home. So the shots against may very well come down once they're back at home. And then there's looking at how they're scoring the goals. They're scoring 5-on-5. They've got 12. Now 12 5-on-5 goals through 9 games. That needs to come up. So that's the funny part is, I will agree, they do need to score more 5-on-5. They need to get that respect 5-on-5. They've scored once 4-on-4, twice in overtime during 3-on-3. They have 1 6-on-4 goals. So that's, of course, the overtime or when you're pulling the goaltender to try to force overtime. And you get a power play as well. 5-on-4, they've scored 7 times. That's 7 power play goals in 9 games. Again, 5-on-4. 5-on-3, they've scored 3 times, including, wasn't it twice against Vancouver? So 5-on-3, they're pretty lethal. And you would think, well, of course, teams are always lethal 5-on-3. Nah, we've seen teams almost go through a full season without a 5-on-3 goal. 4 versus 5, so this is shorthanded. They have 1 goal there. And 5 against 6, they have 1 goal, which would mean an empty netter. So that's how their goals are being scored so far this year. And it's impressive that they've been able to put together a 7-2 start with 12 5-on-5 goals so far. So since I'm glass half full, I look at it as basically, well, they've got 7 of 9 starts, or 7 wins and 9 starts, even though they've only got 12 5-on-5 goals. The 5-on-5 scoring will show up. So that could very well be sustainable, right? So their block shots, 17.29 per 60 minutes. That's 9th overall in the National Hockey League. Their giveaways, 4.7 giveaways per 60 minutes, is the second lowest in the National Hockey League. Their takeaways, so this is the thing, pretty tidy hockey when it's a Rangers game. Their takeaways at 5.47 takeaways per 60 minutes. That's only 21st. So they don't give the puck up. They don't steal the puck very often either. So again, pretty clean games there. But yeah, it is interesting to see they're not giving it away or taking it away. And I've mentioned before, those stats can be tracked differently in different locations. Maybe they don't just count them the same in New York as they do in other areas. Now, what's interesting too is there are players on this team who I think could get going, and they're winning despite that. So the ongoing discussion is, well, they don't develop their players very well. I mean, Heedle's playing pretty well. He's not on the board, but he's playing pretty well. He's got the 6 assists thus far. But Lafreniere, 4 goals in 9 games. You can look at that and say, hey, 4 goals in 9 games is good. But you can also turn around and say he's only got 4 points in 9 games. Kakko, 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points in 9 games. Kakko had a very good preseason. Looked like he might be in for a breakout. Hasn't happened. And with Kakko, I think we are now into the portion of his career where the question can rightfully be asked about whether or not he will. And so for Kakko, if his offense doesn't roll out this year, and if he doesn't show that progression, maybe he does end up leaving. Maybe he does end up somewhere else via a trade. Will Cooley, 1 goal in 9 games. I like Cooley's fight and spirit. Cooley's more along the lines of a bottom 6 guy at this stage. I don't think there's any concern about a lack of production there. Blake Wheeler, though, 9 games, no points, and a -4, which is a team worst. In fact, there are very few players on this team who are a minus, but Ryan Lindgren's on the list too. So in 8 games, he's a -3, and he has no points either. So it's been a tough start to the year for Lindgren. And Barclay Goodrow, 9 games, no points, 12 penalty minutes. So in 9 games, that's 6 penalties being taken by Goodrow. And those are players who should be giving you some decent depth scoring, right? Wheeler especially, coming off the year he had last year in Winnipeg. And maybe it is a systems thing. Maybe once he gets used to some of the systems with the Rangers, he'll start scoring. But again, at this stage of Wheeler's career, you can expect a bit of a downturn in his offensive production. And I don't think the Rangers are a team that will be as conducive to him getting points as we saw with him with the Winnipeg Jets. But again, they're winning without all of that. They're winning without needing that. So you've got to think those guys, the points will start showing up, the goals will start showing up. And it should offset if some of the other starts turn out to be unsustainable. But I don't know how unsustainable these numbers necessarily are. Panarin's 15 points in 9 games. That's pretty high. But is he a point-per-game player? Yes. Throughout his career, that's been the case. He's a point-per-game guy. And he's paid very, very well. And right now, he's playing like his paycheck tells you he should be. So are the Rangers for real? There's a question I have for people out there. My answer to that would be sure. I don't see any reason why not. I've been a fan of the Rangers over the last 3 years when they came out of this rebuild era, and I've really liked the roster they've put together. I think they're fun to watch. And even though they took one out of the Canucks, and again there was some anger after that game. In general, I've just been quite happy to watch all of this develop so far this year, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it turns out. So where do you think the Rangers stand in terms of actual contenders status early in the season? Remembering it's early, we're 9 games in, but they look quite good, don't they? Let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video, or just because you feel like it, Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.